Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another wonderful lesson with Mr. Wheezy. So, continuing on through polygons. Now we're going to get into quadrilaterals here, but first off, let's do the kickoff. Triangle has 7, 8, and 8 for sides. What kind of triangle is it? Well, number one, this is kind, not kid. But what type of triangle is it? Well, if we have 7, 8, and 8, we have two of the sides that are the same. When two sides are the same, it is isosceles. So we can't really comment on the angles because we don't know what those angles are, but we do know based off the sides that it's an isosceles. So what we're getting into is quadrilaterals. So any four-sided figure is a quadrilateral. So as long as it has four sides, it is a quadrilateral. We will always identify it as such. Now, it breaks off into certain things. Now, one that's not on this one that it kind of talks about is if none of the sides are parallel, but yet adjacent sides, so two sides that touch are congruent, and the other two sides that touch, then it's a kite. But I don't know if you get a whole lot of that, but that's kind of what a kite is. If we have one set of opposite sides that are parallel, so this one's going the exact same direction as this one, but the sides are not parallel, then it's going to be a trapezoid. If both sets of sides are parallel, that makes it a parallelogram. Also, with a parallelogram, opposite sides are going to be congruent. Now, from there where it splits is, if we know it has four right angles, that's what makes it a rectangle. Now, because it's a rectangle, we know it's a parallelogram, which we also know the sides are going to be congruent. Opposite sides are going to be congruent. But all we know for it to be a rectangle is it has to have four right angles. The other side of this split is a rhombus. It has to have four sides that are all congruent in order to be a rhombus. So if we know all four sides are congruent, it's a rhombus. And the last thing is, if it joins the two, if we know we have four right angles and four congruent sides, then it's a square. So think almost like a family tree, except, well, no, that's not going to be a family tree. Never mind, forget that example. So a parallelogram can split to a rectangle and a rhombus, and if both of those are true, then it makes it a square. So what you're going to have to do for homework is stuff like this. What name best describes a shape? So we start with, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know it's going to be a quadrilateral. Well, do we know opposite sides are parallel? Well, we don't really have the arrows showing, but this one looks like it's going the same way, and this one here looks like it's going the same way. So yeah, it does. You know, it's definitely not a trapezoid here where we have only one set that are going the same way and then the other ones aren't. These two are flowing the same way, these two are flowing away. So same thing as parallelogram. Don't know it has four right angles. But we do know we have four congruent sides, so therefore it is a rhombus. And that's kind of what you're going to do. You're going to use this little chart to go, okay, do I have this quality? Do I have this quality? Oh, I do. This is what I can name it as. Now, I know this shape looks a little funky, but that's just because I'm sure when I scanned this in, the book moved a little bit, so then it shifted it around. But it's supposed to be straight sides. So again, we have four sides, so we're good. We see we have four right angles, so we know it's at least a rectangle. But then we look at the marks. There's 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks. These are all the same. It may not look like it. Again, probably the book was moving when I did this, so it stretched it out. So I must have moved while I was scanning. But if it has four right angles and it has four congruent sides, that makes it a square. And if you looked at the filled out notes, it would say rectangle. That is wrong. Because it has the 2, the 2, the 2, all four sides are the same. Even though it looks like a rectangle, it is a square. So, what names could we all use to describe this? Well, to start with, does it have four sides? Yeah, it does. So it would be a quadrilateral. Next, does it look like opposite sides are parallel? Yeah, it does. So that would be a parallelogram. Do we know we have 4 right angles? Well, no, we can't quite tell because it doesn't have the boxes. But it looks like it does. This looks like a right angle, this looks like a right angle, this looks like a right angle. Now, the ones on the homework, I believe, will give you all those boxes. This was just a shape that I found that I could use, so it doesn't have all the marks. But this would have 4 right angles. So having 4 right angles makes it a rectangle. Are opposite sides the same? Well, yeah, it looks like opposites are the same. Are all 4 the same? Yeah, it really does look like they're all 4 the same length. So that makes it a rhombus. And we know if it's a rectangle and a rhombus, that's going to make it a square. So, sometimes it'll say, what's the best one? So what would be the best way to describe it? Because if you go back to this here, this is just a general name. The further we go down, the more precise we are. So square means it's also a rectangle, it's also a rhombus, it means it's a parallelogram, and it's a quadrilateral. So it means everything above it, but yet it doesn't mean everything below it. So if we have a parallelogram, we know it would also be a quad, but we don't know if it's any of these. We just know it's a parallelogram. So think you can go up with naming, you can't go down with naming. But you want to find the most precise one. The other time is they're going to say, hey, what are all of the names that work? So you would go through and you would click, well, yeah, this works, this works, this works, this works, this works. And that's how you'd answer it. So, questions, comments, concerns, please send me a message on Google Classroom or in my email. You can also pan me, but just know that it may take me a little longer to get back to you. But until next time, we'll talk to you later, guys.